Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Blind Boys Politics. And for the first time, we are coming to you on a Thursday.
Does it feel different being a Thursday?
Each time we release on a new day, it feels so strange. I don't know how to take it
it's
in.
the same. It's the same. Whoops! There goes my mouse. My bad. It's the same computer. It's the same ugly face I see on Zoom. So it must be all on the up and up.
Wow.
So we are coming to you on Thursday because, as I'm sure half of America knows, that Tuesday was the debate, and we are giving you coverage of the debate. Pretty much a breakdown of exactly what happened, and boy, a lot did happen.
Oh my God, it was interesting.
That's putting it lightly, buddy.
Well,
So the debate was in Cleveland, Ohio, and the moderator was Chris Wallace. He was chosen by the Commission of Presidential Debates. He is also a news anchor for Fox News. You might know him mostly from his July 2020 interview with current President Donald Trump, where he grilled him on stuff. Nick will play that clip right here, won't you, editor?
yes, I will, Chris.
Thank you, buddy.
You're welcome.
He wants to fund it.
Sir, he does not.
Did you read the charter that he agreed
It says
to?
nothing about defunding the
Oh,
police.
really?
So from that clip, that kind of shows everyone that it is not favorable towards the president because he was giving the president a run for his money through the debate and in that interview. Now,
Yeah, he pulled no punches. That, just to put it simply, he didn't pull any punches with the president in either situation. He tried to be as strict as he possibly could, to be honest. And you could
No.
tell while watching the whole time.
little fun fact about Chris Wallace, he's actually been in the business since the 70s. He worked for Embassy, and he also did the White House, and he also, he was a correspondent for the White House, and he also hosted Meet the Press.
It's a pretty decorated career.
Yeah, and he also held the debate in 2016, and he got much praise even from CNN for maintaining order and focused on the issues at task. Now, whether or not that happened tonight,
You'll find out, because we'll have clips for you throughout the episode regarding some of the candidates' answers, and you'll get to see exactly kind of what we're talking about there.
So do we just want to dive right into it with the first topic of discussion?
Yeah, I think that'd be best, because there were a lot of things discussed during this debate, so let's just fly right in.
Okay, so the first question was about, what was it? What does each candidate feel that they are the right on their argument for when a new Supreme Court justice should be appointed?
So, with that question, Trump was given first chances on responding, and he essentially said that since he won the election, since he was the one in office, he has the opportunity to appoint these justices. He has the power and the consequences to put these things into motion and to put these things through. And so his kind of thoughts were that they should pretty much just send the nomination through of Amy Barrett now. And that's pretty much, in a nutshell, that's what he had to say.
So then Biden said that the American people have the right to have a say in who is in the Supreme Court, and due to the election year, not many people are going to have that say because many people have already voted. So he's saying that it should have waited until after the election so whoever became president could choose the Supreme Court nomination. Now, he goes on to say that the president only was pushing this because he does not agree with Joe Biden's Medicare plan, and he knows Amy Coney Barrett also does not agree with Biden's Medicare plan. That is the main reason that the president was pushing this forward, and then after that, Trump fired back with...
Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
during
election.
that period of time, we have an opening.
So pretty much in that quote, what he's trying to say, essentially what that quote from RGB was trying to say was, that he's elected for 4 years, not 3. So at the end of the day, he pretty much has the right to push this through if he really wants to. And, he has the time. He is elected for the set time. And just because the election is upon us and is around us, that doesn't mean that his that his power diminishes any, or that he doesn't have the power to push this through.
Right. And then after that, Joe Biden fired back saying that he wants healthcare provided or healthcare expanded for everyone. Now, this debate is going to be like this the entire time, where it's just back and forth, and then just off on a different tangent that has nothing to do with anything.
There were tangents upon tangents throughout this entire thing.
And then, so after that, Biden brings up the health care, Trump decides, I'm going to talk about COVID. And then that's where Chris Wallace interrupts, and we have a little bit of a clip of kind of what happened there.
No, can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to
question.
be honest.
He stood up.
The answer to the question is no.
Ukraine.
Sir.
With $1 billion, if you
that
get rid
is
of
absolutely you know what, not true.
You're doing it.
You're going to have
tape.
True, gentlemen. I hate to raise my voice, but it seems to be. Why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the deal.
Good point.
We have 6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more interrupting
that's
than he
all right,
has.
but he does plenty.
Well, less than, sir, less than
plenty.
No, less than you have.
So even, from that clip right there, we see that, Wallace, he's trying his best to take control of the situation. And, he's doing what he can. Unfortunately, what he can do is kind of limited, trying to take control. But, as we can see, Trump is, he's not really doing a good job at staying quiet. He's not doing a good job at actually, being quiet when it's his turn to be quiet. And that's kind of a running theme throughout the entire debate. There were problems with that throughout the entire night.
Right, and a debate's supposed to work is they get 2 minutes to say their piece, and then they have a back and forth conversation about it, not interrupt.
Right.
Now, after Wallace gets Trump in line, he asks Biden a question. Biden didn't even get 3 words out of his mouth, and Trump just starts going off on a tangent again.
Well, and it got to the point at one point later on where they actually had to give Biden, I think it was like 30 seconds back, because Trump wouldn't stop talking during Biden's 2 minutes.
Yeah. And then after that, Wallace gets them tired again, and then the 15 minutes is up, and it's time to go on to the next conversation. And right before they do, Wallace reminds them of what their they've agreed to before they came to the debate. And right after that, Joe Biden tells Trump to shut up because he starts talking again and to continue running his yapper. And that's just a course outline of how the rest of this debate is going to run.
Professional debate, guys. This is a presidential debate.
You know, for a presidential debate, you would think they would have a little bit more professionalism.
Neither of them did. So yeah, moving forward again here, we move into the coronavirus situation, and Biden went first on this topic, and he essentially just made it clear that 205,000 Americans have died thus far from coronavirus, and that 4% of the nation's population has gotten the virus thus far, and we're seeing increases of about 40,000 cases per day. Now, he goes on to say that Trump didn't have a plan to handle COVID, that he was well aware of the COVID situation back even in February, but that he took no real action to plan out a strategy to take care of the situation and to solve the situation. And Biden also goes on to claim that he has had plan after plan to resolve the situation and to help the situation. And again, kind of restated that Trump had nothing.
Right. So then after Biden's 2 minutes is up, it's Trump's turn to have his 2 minutes. He said if it wasn't for him for shutting down the country, it would have been way worse. Biden said continuously all throughout the shutdown that it's racist of him. He should have never shut down the country, never should have done this, that. Trump thinks he did an excellent job at shutting down the country. He isolated the issue, and he made it a lot less worse than it should have been. And he said if Joe Biden was in charge, it would have been much, much worse than it was. And he talked about the swine flu and how there was 14,000 deaths and how terrible managed that was. Now, because Trump started talking about the swine flu, Joe Biden fired back.
Yeah, so in that, response back, we pretty much see Biden just, try to put a contrast between the numbers and deaths from swine flu and coronavirus. We see him say that, we hear him say that it was only 14,000 deaths compared to 205,000. He said that this is he basically tries to say that this situation can't really compare to the swine flu one, and that you can't trust what Trump says, that at this point you can only trust what the doctors and the scientists say.
So, he's pretty much saying that let the professionals actually do the talking, don't listen to Trump. And then Trump to that says, well, we're going to have a vaccine ready by the end of the year, and that everything's going to be hunky-dory. The vaccine's going to come out. Once it's approved by the FDA, it's going to be shipped out that night, that people will be able to start getting the vaccine ASAP. It's going to happen before the end of the year.
Yeah, and, to that, Biden basically tried to fire back using quotes from Dr. Redfield, who had said that the vaccine probably won't be ready to the general public until the summer of 2021. And
Biden also told us that you have to remember that President Trump's also the guy that told you that this whole thing would be gone by Easter, and then as soon as warm weather got here, it would be gone. Mystery solved, just like magic had gone. And he even went so far as to injecting bleach into your arms. So there's that.
Yeah, and of course with the whole bleach thing, Trump says that it was a sarcastic remark, and that everyone knows it was a sarcastic remark. But we leave that up to you on whether what you think about that one.
So then, after that, Biden goes on to say that, if Trump wins the election, he's going to downplay the whole thing. He's not going to be worried about it anymore, and it's going to be is what it is. He used that quote again, and he said, you also have to remember that Trump hasn't had a plan since February, so why would he get a plan now? And then somehow the whole conversation about who is smarter came up. It first started with Biden telling Trump, talk to me when you become smart.
Yeah.
And then it was just a rapid snowball from there.
Am I the only one that thought that Trump was about to explode when Biden said that, just from the way that Trump started talking in his response?
Well, Trump said, you graduated lowest in your class. So tell me when you're actually smart, Biden.
Well, he actually used the line, you can't even remember the name of the university you graduated from.
Well, then they had a whole argument about who was smarter, and Chris Wallace obviously had to interrupt there and get that under control. So then, keeping along with COVID, things transferred into the reopening plan. Biden says Trump has no reopening plan. That's why things aren't reopening. He said, things cost money for things to reopen, and Trump's not providing any money for anybody to reopen. He said, their initial plan was to send masks and everything to all students, and, well, they found out how much that was going to cost, and they put it into that. So that is the true reason why schools aren't opening. Well, Trump fired back with?
Yeah, so Trump fired back with a statement basically saying that Biden was the one that wanted to keep the country closed down, that he's been looking at states like Pennsylvania who have been struggling because they've been shut down, states like it, and that he wants to get them opened up, that he wants to get them figured out, because if they don't, then obviously those states are going to suffer more. And again, he's pretty much blaming Biden for the fact that that states like Pennsylvania are still closed at the moment. And he says that he does have a plan to reopen them, and that Biden's lying about the fact that he doesn't.
Right. So that was the end of that conversation. Chris Wallace then asked Trump, what is his point of view on the mask? Trump said he only will wear the mask when needed. He thinks that the mask is important, but he only wears it when needed because, unlike Biden, he doesn't wear it everywhere he goes. He said that Biden could be 200 feet away from someone and still be wearing a mask. And then Biden just responded that the mask will save 100,000 lives.
Right. Now, Biden's response to this was pretty much that, the doctors have pretty much been saying that we could see another, a death rate by the end of the year of another 200,000 or so on top of the 205,000 we've already seen thus far, and that wearing the masks could cut that 200,000 in half. And so he still strongly urges people to wear the masks at any point that they are that they're out in public, and that it's just a good way to save the lives of the people.
Right. And then that was the end of their COVID discussion, and then it moved into the economic conversation. Now, I feel like the economic discussion was like a turning point in this debate of things started to fall downhill very quickly and very fast. And I mean, they were just shouting at each other. You can't understand anything.
No.
I mean, when I was writing these notes, my fingers were just, some of this writing, I can barely understand what I even wrote. I had to write so fast.
So yeah, for the economic side of things, Trump opened up with his statements on the fact that the country needs to reopen now, that the coronavirus, or as he called it, the China plague, has cost millions of dollars to be lost, and that the country is suffering the longer it stays closed. So he believes that they need to reopen now. He believes that as long as we can reopen at this point, the economy will be able to recover pretty smoothly and pretty nicely. He says that as things are reopening at this moment, markers are being met, goals are being met, and the recovery has started. And he goes on to say that the whole thing is sad, and one of the main reasons he wants to reopen right now, besides the direct economy, is the fact that the coronavirus, with everyone being quarantined and shut in, the number of alcoholics has risen, the number of divorces has risen, the depression rate has risen, the suicide rate has risen. All these horrible factors and all these horrible things have risen in number. And so to get rid of that, along with continue to meet the goals for the economic recovery, he strongly urged the country to reopen as quickly as possible.
And then after that, Joe Biden had his 2 minutes to talk. He said, Trump doesn't want the country to reopen. If he wanted the country to reopen, he would be helping the small businesses reopen. He claims that billionaires and millionaires have gotten even more richer off of this shutdown. And here is the middle class, the everyday American suffering. He says that 1/6 of small businesses have closed since COVID-19, and that people like the president are just getting richer. He says, that's all he says. And guess what happens, Nick?
What happens, Chris?
The big question comes in.
The big question.
Yes, we'll be talking about this Friday morning. But this came up in the debate. How much did Trump pay in his tax returns?
Oh, yes. We expected this question to come up. We expected...
It was a big bombshell drop.
There was really no hiding the fact that it would come up during this debate, and because it's been built up so much recently. Of course, we've heard statements in the past about his taxes and the problems surrounding that, but as the debate drew closer, more and more word about his taxes started to come out, because the claim is that he only pays $750 in federal taxes each year. So, Chris, why don't you tell us what he had to say about that?
We'll get into more details about the $750 on Friday morning, like I said, but Chris Wallace asked him yes or no. Trump never yes or no. He said he's paid $38 million 1 year. He paid $27 million 1 year in federal income tax. He has never paid $750. He says he gets private tax credits, but it's still... those were put in effect because of the Obama administration giving them so many years tax-free, this and that, he said, but never paid $750 in tax returns. And we never got that answer until Chris Wallace had to ask him 3 times, is it a yes or no answer? He said no. And then Biden, he cuts in there and goes, then show us your tax returns.
To which Trump basically said that he will...
Someday.
He essentially said that he'd release the tax returns after the election is over. So do with that what you will. But that's pretty much just what went on with that situation there.
Now, Biden says Trump loves the tax codes because he can take advantage of them. He feels that that's all he's ever done is take advantage of taxes, and that he's taken advantage of the middle class, and he should be paying his taxes, and Biden believes he's not.
So now we get into Biden's economic plan and what he wants to do over the next 4 years. And to put it short and simple, based off what he gave us during this debate, he wants to create 7 million new jobs here in the U.S. And the way he pretty much wants to do this is by making sure that all things used by the government would be made here in the U.S., therefore bringing, pretty much making new jobs a necessity so that all of those products could be made.
So then after that, it just turned into back and forth and like one-liners. Trump says the Obama administration had the slowest economic growth ever. Biden says, no, we didn't. I brought back the car industry. Manufacturing, it was the best when we were in office. Trump goes, what do you mean? No, I'm the one that did that. I created 100,000 new jobs. Biden goes, no, you did not create it. You ruined it, and now everything I did has been undone.
What Biden tried to say pretty much was that during the last 3 years of the Obama administration, there were more jobs created than during the first 3 years of Trump's administration. So he tried to use that as backing for the fact that, Trump really hasn't been successful with the economy, that he has ruined it. But, so that's what we got from that, pretty much.
So then after Biden said, well, you ruined it, Trump fires back, brings Joe Biden's son into it. So then a big argument starts about that, and Chris Wallace shuts them up and moves on. And then we're not even going to talk about what they argued with, because to be completely honest with you, I could not keep up with it.
No, that was one part of this debate where I just got so like, I felt like I got thrown around. It felt like a roller coaster gone wrong.
We move on to race and protesting and, the big issues of race that 2020 has faced. So Biden goes first. He says this is the main reason that he got involved with the 2020 election is because Trump called the KKK good people, and that, there needs to be more repercussions for your actions in this country. If you do something wrong, you need to pay the price for that. And that, what is that? He said, and due to the race, and he brings up the COVID, that due to President Trump, 1 out of every 1,000 African Americans will die from COVID-19 because Trump has not given them the support financially that they need. So then after that, Trump proceeds to tell him.
Yeah, so Trump comes back at Biden basically calling him out for calling the African Americans super criminals back in, the 1990s. And that, the African Americans aren't going to forget that. They're not going to forget a statement like that. He goes on to say that they shouldn't trust Biden, that they shouldn't listen to anything he says because of this statement that he's not worth their trust, and that he won't touch or speak the words law and order, because if he does, he'll lose his left-wing extremist supporters. And he goes on to mention this multiple times over the next, few, like 10, 20 minutes of the debate.
So then after Trump says that, Biden goes on to say that he fully supports the law enforcement. He believes that overall law enforcement are good people, but there is a few bad apples, and those bad apples need to get out. He said the bad apples, they need to be accounted for. They can't just get away with it. And then Trump interrupts him and tells him.
Trump fired back with statements basically saying that, the problems have just continued, that, things like the race sensitivity training that had been going on as like a practice throughout the country was racist, and that's why he stopped it. That's why he ended it. And then, yeah.
So then after that, Biden informs everyone that this is no longer 1950. Things have changed. Times have changed. People need to get with the times. And he said we need to get back to when he was in office, that cops got to know their community. They had the bonds there. They had the communications. And then Trump fired back immediately that this is his way of cutting the police.
Yeah, and of course there was a huge debate on, who actually wants to defund the police. Biden saying Trump wants to defund them. Trump saying Biden wants to defund them and cut their funds and all that good stuff. It was quite fascinating.
Nick, did you catch the sign where Biden said, towards the end, Bunker Boy came out, had the Secret Service tear gas the peaceful protesters in front of the White House so he could walk across the road to the church for a peaceful protest, or for a photo shoot, I mean. And the next day, the minister called it a joke, and it was just propaganda, pretty much. But did you catch the part where he called him Bunker Boy?
I did hear that line, and that just kind of expresses more and more of that like lack of professionalism that we were talking about before. These names, these different terms and stuff that were being used on both sides of the debate from both candidates, and that's just another clear example of that.
So then there's, a few seconds of can't understand a word they're saying.
Yep.
So
more
then
screaming.
Pretty much. So then they move into their fourth topic of discussion, and that is their records. Okay, so in his records, Trump says that he has broken records. He's gotten the most done in 3 years than any other president in history. He said he's fixed the military, he's fixed the VA. He has a 91% approval rating with the VA, and that's because he gave the VA attention that is needed, and that he got rid of everything that Obama did for the VA when he was president.
So Biden would go on to say that Trump has made the country poorer, that he's made the country weaker, that he has been a direct cause for the increase in violence in this country. He said he is responsible for the 15% rise in crime since the Obama-Biden administration. He also goes on to call Trump Vladimir Putin's puppy dog, and says that Trump will not and cannot stand up to Putin. And then to round it all off, he says that Trump claimed that the military were losers. And, Biden basically just says, no, they're not losers. They are heroes.
Now, they didn't really talk about this too much more. That was pretty much, they said their 2-minute thing and moved on. One thing that did come up is Biden's son once again, and Trump says he got thrown out of the military, and Biden said he did not get thrown out of the military. He said, just like he said, just like a large majority of our country has some sort of an addiction, and unfortunately my son had an addiction, but he has moved on from that. But he still served in our country, and he is still a hero. He should not be called a loser.
Yeah.
Now, moving on from that, there was nothing more from that. They jumped right into climate change.
So for Trump's climate change plan, he basically focuses on the situation going on with the wildfires in California and how those could be fixed and how those could be put out finally. He speaks to how the forests are mismanaged, how there are dead trees and dead leaves all over the forest floor, just left pretty much waiting to burn. To back his case up a little bit, he tries to put in a little piece about how people in Europe, there are places in Europe that are called forest cities because they pretty much handle taking care of the forests there. They handle making sure that the forest floors are cleaned up, because he says that there are trees over there that could burn even easier than the ones here in California, but that they don't because they're managed correctly. The forests are managed correctly, and that the same thing needs to happen here. And then beyond that, he did put in a little mention about the fact that it would be cheaper and safer for cars to be made electric.
Right, and then Biden, he says that, first he says he supports the New Green Deal. And then Wallace asks and confirms that, and he says, no, I support the Biden energy plan. So then after that, he says that by 2034, he would have it where net zero carbon footprint, and he said that if he became president, all their vehicles would become ran off electric, and that with everything turning to green and not coal powered and all that, he would create millions of new jobs.
Yeah.
Now, at this point in the debate, you can tell that there's starting to be press for time, because Chris Wallace starts pushing things a little long. So that's the end of climate change. And it just gets moved right into the polls on what they want to be said to their supporters. Now, Chris Wallace asked them, what would you tell your supporters, if we don't get the results of the election immediately November 3rd? And this is what Biden had to say. Biden said that he said that it is what it is. He pretty much said the election is what it is. If the results come back that he won, great. If he came back that he lost, it is what it is. He said that people have been doing mail-in ballots for years, including President Donald Trump. He did it in 2016, and he did it in the election before that. He said that vote whatever way you are most comfortable voting. If you are comfortable walking in, good. If you're comfortable doing the mail-in, good. He said that just have a plan, vote, and just be patient. Now, Trump, what did Trump have to say, Nick?
Trump, he strongly encouraged people to go and vote in person. He encouraged a solicited ballot. He does not trust the mail-in ballots. He does not trust the fact that they will be fair and that they will, show the right results. He makes multiple claims that there were tons and tons of ballots found in creeks, in garbage cans, and all that, all that good stuff. So he urges people to vote in person. He, makes it clear that he wants the Supreme Court to check the ballots when they come in, to make sure that they are legitimate, that they are fair, and he rounds everything off by once again stating that that people should do an in-person vote and not to trust the mail-in ballots.
And that was it for the first presidential debate. It was very chaotic.
You have to give props to Chris Wallace for doing all he could to keep these two in line.
It was crazy for news reporters. It was crazy for viewers to watch. And so we're watching and we're trying to now give it the information to you. So, and this is the first presidential debate that we are covering, so bear with us. The next presidential debate that we will be covering is October 7th. So by then we might have a different system. Things might be running a little differently, etc. So please bear with us. We promise we'll improve. We'll figure out what works and what doesn't work because we're going through this with you. But until then, we'll see it. I can't believe I'm saying this, Nick, but we'll see you tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy. We'll see you guys in a day.
I mean, yeah. By the time you're listening to this, it might be less than a day. You might be hearing from us in like 11 hours. Who knows? But
yeah.
Tomorrow
either way,
we'll be talking about Conan O'Brien, stimulus, and so much more. So make sure you tune in, and then see you tomorrow morning. Yeah. That sounds really weird to say. Okay,
I know,
bye,
right?
everyone.
It's crazy. Bye, guys.